Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Yasujirō Ozu's Late Spring. Now, Ozu is a filmmaker who I've really been looking forward to talking about on this channel. He's a well-known filmmaker, most known for probably Tokyo Story, and you could say that's still his most acclaimed film, and he's most loved, by the general audience. It all began last year really when I started acquiring the Blu-rays and DVDs and stuff. Of what's available, because not all of his films, I think he made around 50 odd films, but they're not all available, and certainly not on Blu-ray, as is the case with most of these classic directors, unfortunately. But yeah, Ozu, I got his stuff last year, and once I had amassed a good amount, I started digging in last November, I believe, and I started with Brothers and Sisters of the Toda Family, which I thought was a really, really good film, great almost. Yeah, you could say it's great. And I kind of just fell in love with his style and his films. And since I've seen 8 more films of his, I believe, and really 5 of those I could call masterpieces. That's how good I think this guy is. And really, certainly this year, the films I've watched from him, he's kind of become a director who's changed my life, and has become one of my absolute favourite directors. But yeah, he's most known for Tokyo Story, and of course, it's part of the Noriko trilogy. And here's Late Spring, the Blu-ray. It's a BFI one. Not the best quality, in audio, but it's kind of like some of the only. There's not much places that actually do Ozu Blu-rays. And BFI are really good for the amount they've actually, restored and stuff. But yeah. Late Spring, and I watched this a couple of months ago, and really it was, I suppose it was the first one where I thought, yeah, this guy is one of the absolute greatest, considering how, the ones I'd seen previous, combined with this, and this was just completely blew me away, and yeah, it's just, I just thought, will I prefer Tokyo Story, really? Is it going to be that good, or Early Summer? Well, we'll get to Early Summer because I watched that shortly afterwards, but Late Spring, it's still one of the most acclaimed films of all time, really, you could say, certainly of critics, and it's got an 8.3 on IMDb as well, and the Sight and Sound, when they conduct their polls, the latest one in 2012, I believe this was at number 15 for the critics poll. Tokyo Story was number 3, and then with the director's poll, Tokyo Story was number 1. But on the top 250, 4 Ozu films was on there, and Late Spring, of course, is one of his most loved. Some people put it, say it's his best film, his most perfect film, and now that I've seen it, I can see why people say that, because this is something else, and yeah, the style that Ozu has is very, very simple. You could say it appears to be simple anyway. He uses a lot of static shots, especially in his later films, his post-war films, which of course this was one of the first post-war films he'd done. He'd done a few before that. But yeah, his style became more and more contained. It appeared more simple. He uses less, movements with the camera. And yeah, more static shots, and of course he's famous for placing the camera really low down, kind of because Japanese and that they sat on mats and stuff, they still do, and to keep with eye level with them, kind of, keep down to their level, and yeah, it kind of adds this intimacy, and you can kind of relate straight away just through the camera, the way it's placed, how low it is. You kind of just sort of you're down on their level and you're kind of observing their lives, and this is what I found, the earlier Ozus as well. But I think he kind of, with this film, the ones I've seen, this is the film where he perfected this style, I think. And what it does really is just because these films are family dramas for the most part. A lot of people say he makes the same films over and over, but that's pretty offensive and stupid, because he doesn't. But he does, explore similar themes, life and death, marriage and stuff, and just, family units and stuff. And this is very, some of the stuff is very similar to Early Summer, which I've seen. But yeah, this, I suppose, is more of the darker of them. As I say, they're mostly family dramas, and he deals with relationships and everything. And I love that sort of stuff. Everyone can relate really to family films like this. Human dramas. If you have the patience, and there's something that's in his films that's so universal. It's a shame that at first, his films wasn't really worldwide. People didn't really recognise him. It was considered too Japanese, which is really offensive anyway. Because, but over the years, people have kind of flocked to his films, and they're universally loved. For people who actually do dig out the classics. And yeah, it's because of the themes as well that he explores. But I believe as well, there's kind of like this really natural feel, and something that you straight away you can just relate to his characters, and to his style, and the way he explores his themes is so sincere. All the characters in his films usually they're never one-sided really. They're kind of just humans, they're flawed people, but they're just presented in a way that you never really hate a character or completely well, I mean, I love some of the characters, but yeah, there's never a character who's just completely one-sided really of the films I've seen. He just presents us humans like we are, and something straight away you can relate to all these things that he does. But yeah, his style is really unique, and some say it's basic, but no, because although he doesn't move the camera, especially in his post-war films, too much, and he keeps keeps the camera low and everything, and keeps it fairly simple on the surface level. There's so much depth in his shots, the way he composes them, and the compositions, are absolutely something else. People say that Kurosawa made better films, in the way they were shot and everything, but I wouldn't say that. I would say they're pretty even, because there's Ozu kind of he arranges things so perfectly, meticulously, in the frames. Even just pots and everything, and the way he plays with depth in the shots is all for different effects. People might not realise it at first, but really there's so much that goes into his films, and it's quite remarkable how he would pump out so many films quite frequently. He'd make loads and loads of films, and so consistent in their quality as well. And although he didn't take loads and loads of risks, in terms of genres and stuff, like Kurosawa, he did break away from a lot of the cinematic formula, and that's what people have commented on as well. The way he breaks the the different camera angles you're meant to do. Some of the scenes, you see the characters looking straight, almost straight at the camera, to the other characters, behind the camera, instead of the way they're usually supposed to do it. I won't get into that, but this is not. I don't think this is just Ozu, breaking away from films for the sake of it. Really, it places you within these conversations, and it adds something more involved in it. I think on this case, in this case, and the combination of his almost far away shots, low down, so we observe, and then going into the conversation sometimes, in between the characters talking. It first of all eases you in, I think, and then it kind of straight into the conversations, but it's done in a way that's not in your face kind of thing, which is hard to explain, and he does it in such a way that he kind of just masters it. But yeah, Late Spring, this film, of course, one of the most acclaimed films of all time, and for good reason. The main character is played by Setsuko Hara, who is in loads of Ozu's films, and probably the most famous Japanese actress who ever lived. She plays Noriko, of course, and she's kind of lives with her father. She's like 27, her father's played by Chishû, and it's basically, eventually you find out that some of the family and friends are trying to get her married, because of traditions and everything, and what society expects, which is another thing he explores so well, in such a way. of both sides of the argument. But yeah, they're trying to get her married, and she doesn't really want to. She wants to just stay with her father, and most of the film is kind of just, yeah, it's a character study of Noriko and the father, and you've also got some other side characters, Haruko, Sugimura, I think it is. She's in quite a lot of Ozu films, and she plays Masa, and she's kind of as well persuading the father to get her, married off and stuff. And it's a really, it's quite a moving film in the first half, even so, but the second half and the final act of the film is really such a moving piece of cinema, and so powerful, the ending and everything. But it's the way he explores this is really sincere, because although the father, he's kind of trying to get her married off, even though she doesn't really want to, you kind of see that he means well, and it's not done in a way where you're meant to straight away feel, his pain as well, and understand him. It's done in such a sincere way, in a gradual way, that you kind of come to realise it in the second half, his real intentions. But yeah, it's a kind of such a bittersweet film. It's done in such a way that Ozu just masters. First of all, the script is really something, and how he managed to kind of put in life lessons into just this simple family film, family drama kind of. It's just so wonderful, the way he can elevate the what some people would say just everyday life, and things that happens to everyone in some way. Really, I still can't explain how he does this, better than pretty much every director. There's some things that are clear, the way he, of course, the shots and everything we've talked about. But there is something that you can't really describe, where you wouldn't expect to get so involved in some of this stuff. But if another director made something like this, sometimes they can just be flat. But this seems to be so dramatic, but also they're so calm, his films as well. That's another thing. They're so calm, and the way he captures nature as well, and kind of does these pillow shots. In between scenes, which some people say are pointless, but I don't believe so. And it just kind of adds to the experience of this calm, these spiritual films, and he manages to uplift. He manages to kind of, elevate the everyday life so well. But yes, in the end, this film is so powerful and so moving. It really got me the first time I saw it. I since rewatched it last week. I'm rewatching quite a lot of the Ozus now with my brother. But yeah, the way that this film is directed is masterful. The way that the film flows, and the editing and everything, it's absolutely flawless. And every shot of the film, as I say, is perfectly crafted. And really, it's just this is something to admire so much. But it's the relatability of the characters. And the fact that you can see in all of his films, really, that at some point that's happened to you, or you understand, that happening. And it's just the way he can draw you into these relatable things going on, and when things turn dramatic, really dramatic, still in some ways subtle, it can really hit you. And the way he does this is absolutely masterful. And the music in this film, Senji Ito. He composed the score, and the way it's used, Ozu always places the different, the parts of the music, the score works so well basically with this film, and it always elevates the dramatic and emotional scenes to something even greater. And you've also got just a gentility to his music in this film, and some of the scores to his later films are even better than this, but it's just such a moving, beautiful piece of music, and the way it's used throughout the film to kind of elevate the emotional parts, and as well just in the pillow shots, the way he uses the music there, it's really just spiritual. It adds to the film in that way, and as I say, all the characters in this film as well, even the side characters, they're so memorable, and they always serve, whether they're just sort of trying to say to the father to get her married and stuff. Every scene, all the scenes in this film, all the characters just the side characters even, they all have their purpose, and they're also memorable as well, you know. And yeah, just the acting in this film, especially by, you know, Setsuko Hara and Chishû, is absolutely masterful. You know, at first it seems quite subtle, and you know, you could say it is throughout the film. And you know, Setsuko Hara, you know, Noriko in this film is a character who smiles quite a lot, you know, in the first half of the film. And I kind of realised, you know, that's kind of an act, you know, for everyone else in the film. Kind of, she's trying to kind of hide her real emotions, and that comes very clear in the second act of the film, and then certainly in the final act. You know, but it's such a powerful ending. You know, if you've seen the ending, you'll know what I mean. But the acting by her is on another level, really. And as well, Chishû, you know, I really, he's such a warm character. You know, the character he plays. But you feel so much for him as well. And although, you know, he does kind of get, you know, he's trying to, you know, eventually work against, and you know, he's trying to get Noriko married. And you know, we don't want her to get married. Never does she really, but you still feel so much for him, and you kind of understand where he's coming from. And you know, he's been pressured into it by people as well and stuff. But yeah, the heartbreak that happens in this film is on another level, and his acting is superior. You know, he's in most Ozu films, Chishû, and he's become one of my favourite actors of all time, for sure. And so is Setsuko Hara. You know, she's one of the best, for sure, and just the way that their relationship is in this film, you know, how tender it is and how it's captured, and how, you know, complex it is. You know, this film is not simple, as some people, you know, call Ozu films. There is something really deep and complex, and it's so, the way it portrays, you know, how society and everything and expectations and traditions affects this relationship. And the way that they're meant to, you know, they think they're meant to feel, you know, it's so well done. And yeah, you know, everything else in the film is just so masterful. This is a perfect film. I cannot flaw this film, and the way that Ozu elevates, you know, this, you know, what everyone would think is just your normal life, you know, everyday life. How he managed to elevate that is something else. But there's almost like a dreamlike quality to this film. It's not just, you know, like a documentary, what you'd think. I think there's a way it captures nature and stuff, and just how beautiful the film looks and everything. It makes this, you know, that perfect mix of reality and you know, that fantastical feel, which is what, you know, films, I think, when they're at their best, do. For me anyway, you know, the Godfather example there, you know, it's these real, you know, emotions and stuff and themes, but the way that they're elevated, and you know, everything from the music to cinematography, can make it this kind of, you're taken away, because you know, documentaries, I don't get moved by like I do you know, films, because there's something about it when in cinema, you know, in a film, when it's done well, it can seem realer than real life, and you actually listen more to what it's trying to tell you, as opposed to just someone, you know, telling you, you know, say your parents or whatever, trying to tell you, you know, something. But if films, you know, if they're done in this, you know, slightly fantastical way, even, they can elevate, you know, real themes and everyday things, and be more effective, I think. And this is a perfect example of that. And it's, you know, the way that it's natural, but also very dreamlike. Is the way that, and that's the way really that I think Ozu can kind of elevate and get through to you these themes, these messages. But also, you know, it's definitely, this is cinema, you know, it doesn't feel like a documentary. And, you know, before I saw Ozu films, I didn't know what to expect, really. But, you know, straight away I knew exactly what he was doing. And, you know, he's an absolute genius. And, you know, it's just, you know, the way as well he could pump out so many films and be of this quality, you know, it's something else. And, yeah, just the whole film, every act just builds wonderfully. You know, it finally reveals itself, you know, maybe the 40-minute mark. of what the film is at, where it's going, and you know, the emotions I felt with this film, and you know, that bike scene as well early on, is so wonderful, and the fact that you've got all these warm characters, memorable characters, that you can all relate to and stuff, and it just feels such a lovely film. You know, Ozu, such good intentions. You know, I've never seen a film by him that's this cold in any way. You know, and they're always so, you know, human. You know, human dramas that just uplift, but also at the same time they're really powerful at times. And this is definitely the darker of. I've not seen Tokyo Story yet, but it's definitely darker than Early Summer. I won't say which one I prefer yet, but yeah, it's darker. And you could say that Early Summer's a little bit similar to this. It flips things up a little bit. But yeah, the way that this film, I won't spoil anything, but the way this film ends is really something. It really hits you, you know, because you've spent this time with these characters, and this one is more, you know, contained. There's less characters than Early Summer, and you know, Ozu focuses on them relationships in such a pure form, and you know, because they're so well built up, you know, and played off throughout the film. You know, the final act really just hits you, hit me anyway, and you know, considering everything in this film, you know, from the directing to the editing and cinematography, and how relatable it is, and how sincere, but you know, also so powerful, and this is a spiritual film, you know, one of the most spiritual films that I've seen in a long time, and you know, rightfully so. This is one of the most acclaimed films because it's one of my top 100 films of all time, 100% plus, tier 2. This film uplifted, it made me laugh, it really affected me, and I couldn't imagine a more perfect start to this trilogy. You know, it's kind of like the Dollars trilogy, where it's not related, you know, it doesn't continue, but it's similar sort of things going on. And it, you know, Noriko trilogy is called, because in every film there's a character called Noriko, played by Setsuko Hara, and what an actress she is, you know, and what characters she plays, you know, with such dignity, and you know, what an actress, you know, really something. And you know, this film is just perfect. You know, I could not flaw it one bit, and it goes beyond that though. You know, it's just one of them films, and you know, I've seen this in Early Summer now. I've not seen Tokyo Story. I will be seeing that on Friday, and I'll be reviewing it next week. It comes with Brothers and Sisters of a Total Family, which is the first one I saw. But yeah, these, if you ever get the chance, pick up these Blu-rays. You know, they sometimes dual format. You know, and they're great. You know, not the best of video and audio like say Criterion's, but yeah, they're fairly cheap. I think they're going up a little bit in price, but you know, they usually come with an extra film, and you know, Ozu, you can't miss out. You know, Ozu's often compared to, that's another thing, or you know, put up against Kurosawa, and you know, Mizoguchi, Naruse and stuff. But you know, I've seen 5 Kurosawas all the way through, and 4 of them are masterpieces. But I've got this feeling that I will prefer Ozu once I've seen all their films. At the moment, I think I do. Just the way he's able to consistently move me and make me laugh and relate to everything that's going on. You know, how warm his films are. And Kurosawa, of course, he's a master. He's one of the greatest. But and I don't know if I'll ever see an Ozu film, maybe not, that will top Kurosawa's best. You can probably guess what that is, that I'm on about. It's the most predictable option. But yeah, consistently taking everything into account, you know, how many films I think I'll turn out to absolutely love. Considering, you know, 5 or 6 of them are on my list at the moment of, you know, 500 greatest films. And just the fact that I've got, you know, maybe his best work to come, his most acclaimed work, you know, Tokyo Story, Floating Weeds, and An Autumn Afternoon. You know, I've not seen them. You know, I think this guy could eventually reach my, you know, maybe top 10 directors, and that's something. But Ozu, you know, I absolutely love this director. Completely life changing and just so relatable in every way. And yeah, this is a masterpiece. For sure, one of the greatest films of all time. And yeah, late spring. Could not recommend it highly enough. And yes, thanks for watching my review. And next up will be early summer. I'll do these, film these together basically. And yes, I think actually before we do that, this is one of the most underrated Ozus. Well, certainly one of the most underappreciated. And you know, I will tell you how much I love that film in the next review. But thanks for watching.